Hello and welcome to the DC Stewart Show Podcast. I am your host, Derek Stewart, along with my co-host and kinfolk, Isaah. And it is a Monday morning on the social media. It is a Monday morning. It is a Monday morning, and it is Labor Day. And we are here with a ton of college football to talk about today because we watched the games over the weekend and we were able to, kind of absorb some of what we saw and what we took, in the back of our brains. And folks, we're just happy to be here because, fam, let me tell you something. We are all in this together. Everything that we do, it's about you and it's about us. But it's about you first because we're here to bring you the best that we have to offer, the best of everything, and that's what we're here to do. So hit that like button and hit that subscribe button because, fam, let's do this. Let's do this together and let's get it going. And let me just bring in my kinfolk Isaah. He's got the University of Miami on today, and let me just pull one of these numbers right here. It's all about the U. It's all about the U, baby. And that's the bottom line. Miami played a tough game last night. They pulled it out. We expected this. Mario Cristobal has built this team. They built tough now. They built to last. They're built to sustain games like this. They're built to take control of games like this. And that's what we're going to talk about today, because at the end of the day, it's all about the U, and it's all about Miami sports, not just the University of Miami, but the Miami Dolphins and the Florida Panthers and the Miami Marlins. Although, I live in LA, so I got to sway a little bit toward them Dodgers, in baseball. So let me go ahead and bring in my co-host and kinfolk, Isaah. Tell us a little bit about what you did this weekend and just give us a little bit of rundown on things that's going on right now with you.
This was a weekend of the ages, man. It was beautiful. It rained, in spots, and it was nasty some parts of the weekend, but I couldn't ask for a better weekend. It was filled with fun-filled sports, tennis, and football. Football is my ultimate sport, but bro, yesterday's game with the Hurricanes beating those Catholics, because they call us criminals and
convicts, and the Catholics versus convicts.
Both of them. Yeah, I know it's convict. This is the scrutiny that they put on us, and our images can't even wiggle from under that because the media has gotten hold of it. But guess what? This team is built with some great character. Mario Cristobal got this team clicking, and they got a good cohesiveness. The alumni are coming back at this program. You got Michael Irvin, the playmaker out there, is being animated as can be. Got these guys hyped up, got the swag going on, and bro, I just love that game. I loved it, every minute of it. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, we'll get into some more details of the game, but those officials, oh man, I'm so dissatisfied with them. We'll talk about that in the part of the show. But boy, I was really upset with those play calls. They was holding like crazy. But we'll talk about it in DC. Yeah.
So as far as officiating goes, I like to try to be as subjective as I can about officiating, because we have to have officiating in order to control these sports, whether it's football, basketball, whatever the sport is. I try not to criticize officials too much. I mean, I do see things that are questionable, but at the end of the day, and I'll keep saying this, that if you're a good enough team to overcome some of these things that happen throughout the game, whether it's officiating, whether it's making mistakes, that's all the well good. So we will talk about the officiating because I watched some of the game. Isaah was able to watch all of it, and we'll talk about that. So technically, today's rundown is going to be takeaways and a weekend sports wrap with college football. We're going to cover the Texas-Ohio State game. We're going to go over some of the takeaways in that game. And we're going to go over some of the takeaways in the Colorado-Georgia Tech game because that was a very good game. I watched that game from start to finish. And we're going to go over the Florida State blowout over Alabama because it looks as though Alabama's in trouble. And we got to cover that and give our 2 cents as to what we see coming out of Bama right now, because it doesn't really look good for them to open up the season with this type of loss. And we'll talk a little bit about the LSU Clemson. That's going to cover most of what we're going to talk about today. But in the meantime, we are wanting you to take care of your health and take care of your spirits, your mental health, and look out for yourself before you can look out for anyone else, because a lot of times we forget about ourselves, whether we're married, we have children, we have family, mother, father, brothers, sisters. You have to take care of your mental health first, and you have to take care of your physical health first, because in order to help others, you have to be in the conditioning that you need to be in to be able to sustain and help other people get through certain trials and tribulations and some of the things they might be going through. So we want to make sure everyone is getting that yearly checkup, at least one yearly checkup. You don't have to go in there more than once, I don't think, for most people. And just get that checkup and get a thorough checkup and make sure that they're checking everything that goes from blood work, that goes for, just checking everything, because we have a lot of viruses out here and we have a lot of different things that's floating around in the air, and we never know because it's sitting dormant inside your system. So make sure you do that first.
DC, I would recommend twice. The things that's going around right now is so rapid. So I would recommend going to see your doctor and getting blood work done at least twice.
Twice a year.
Your numbers change. Yeah, they changed rapidly, man. Because you can go in there and your numbers could be fair, but then you can go in there another 6 months and those numbers gonna be overboard. Where now you on medications because you didn't do the right thing the first time. So once you start going to those edges where those numbers start to elevate, you need to go in there and keep it monitored, because next thing you know, you'll be on medication for it. And then, of course, once you start taking medication, you start getting all of these different side effects, and it'll snowball from there. Your health start deteriorating. So I would highly recommend you going there at least twice a year.
That is
everything.
That is so true. You're spot on, Isaiah, because I said once, but technically with everything that's going on in the world now, I would highly suggest twice. That makes more sense than just once. And we are what we eat and we are what we drink. So just be aware of that. If you're taking in a lot of processed foods and processed drinks with a lot of different, ingredients like sugar and salt, those things can highly impact your system. You might not feel it at first. You might be young enough to overcome it. But as you get older, you're going to start feeling some of the side effects of things like sugar and like salt and whatever else they put in these foods, because they're putting a lot of different stuff in these foods. And we live in America and everything is acquired taste. I mean, if it doesn't taste good, we tend to not want to be bothered with it when it comes to food. So make sure you do that, and we'll go from there. Let's do this. Let's get this party started. But you, the viewer, I want you to tell us where the party at, because we have told you where the party at. The party is right here. And the party is right here.
The week after that's going to be here in 2026.
Thank you.
It's always going to be here. And go Canes, baby! I'm so proud of those guys.
I am very proud of them as well. We're going to dive deep into. And since we are on the Canes, let's get started and talk about the Miami Hurricanes. Let me give you a little bit of background about Miami. Miami's a tiny school that's located in Coral Gables, Florida. It's a tiny private university Very, very prestigious private university. All of the programs are good there. You want to become a marine biologist, that's the place to be. You want to become the business school is just as strong. The law school is just as strong, especially for
Medical.
entertainment law. If you're trying to get into entertainment law, there is no other place to go to school than Miami. And to be in an environment such as Miami, to be able to play in an environment such as Miami, it's a dynamic to it because anytime you have a school that's located in a major city that's right on the ocean, it's a tropical city. The city is beautiful. The people are beautiful. By the way, Miami is been voted the number one city in the last 2 decades, the most beautiful people in the country. And I have to agree with that because it's so many beautiful people down there. It's a beautiful environment. It's nothing like getting up in the morning in a tropical environment. And let's just say you play football at University of Miami and go to practice and be able to be on a campus like that. So that gives you a little bit of background. Miami had a football team back in the late 70s, and Lou Saban was coaching that team. And then that team, you know, they were competing, but they couldn't compete on the level of most Division I programs at that time. So what they did is they hired a coach by the name of Howard Schnellenberger. And Howard Schnellenberger, good guy, wore cowboy boots, smoked a pipe. I mean, these were some of the dynamics that Howard Schnellenberger, you know, some of the qualities and dynamics that he had when he accepted the coaching job at Miami. And from that point on, once Schnellenberger got there and was able to start recruiting, and see, the biggest secret in the world was the recruiting was right there in your backyard in Miami. There was no other place you needed to go. You didn't need to even leave South Florida to recruit, because if you went to Central Florida, that was just a plus. If you went to North Florida or Northwest Florida, that was a plus. However, all of that talent, that right talent, was right there in the city of Miami, in Dade County. And these kids were hungry. These kids wanted to play football. They wanted to get themselves and their families out of the certain impoverished conditions that they were in. And as far as skill positions go, there was no other place to recruit talent than Miami. You had high schools, Miami Northwestern. I can go down the list: Miami Jackson, Central, Miami Edison. You know, I could keep going on and on, but it'll take a whole show to name all the schools. So the schools I left out, I apologize. However, I'm going to bring Isaah in and get his take on how Schnellenberger built that program into the powerhouse that it became over the last 2 centuries, or let's just say century, and just the last 2 decades, it's been down on its luck. And Mario Cristobal is trying to get that program back to where it needs to be, back to where it should be in the world of college football. So Isaah, I'm going to start with you and ask you, how do you feel about how Schnellenberger built that program into the dynamic program that it was in? And then Jimmy Johnson came along out of Oklahoma State, and he built it into even a bigger powerhouse. And then after Jimmy Johnson left, Dennis Erickson took the baton and pretty much kept the level up when it came to winning national championships. How do you feel about where the program is now from what you saw last night?
Well, the program is heading in an upward direction. I mean, Mario Cristobal got his hand on the pulse, man. He's an alumni. He played for the University of Miami. He's a local guy who was raised here in South Florida, went to Columbus High School. And I'm going to tell you right now, he's doing a really fantastic job. And I knew it was going to take him a couple of years to straighten out everything from what it was. You know, he couldn't sit aside. And I spoke to him about it, how he couldn't just sit aside and watch the team be diminished and go down south because it was being wrecked. The The tradition was being wrecked. All the pride was gone, and the alumni wasn't coming back. And now he's got everything back in place, man. He's getting the recruits that he want. You got people who's just jumping from schools to come back here and play for him, and you got guys hitting that portal coming here, and he's got it going in the right direction, man. He's got a great relationship with the community. He's always engaged with things here. I love it, man. He's doing a fantastic job. And what I can see now is he's going to be contending for a national championship soon. And I think it's going to be this year. He's got all the marbles, man. He's got everything in place. He's got a great defense. He's got a good quarterback with back there, and he's got a good core of running backs, and he's got everything. He's got a great offensive coordinator. Coaching staff is solid. So it's going to move forward, DC, and I just love what he's doing. And all of these teams that used to come in here and embarrass us, that's going to stop. That's going to stop, man, because like you said last night and today, bro, I watched that game. I watched the officiating, and it wasn't favorable to the Canes. It was a lot of holding, man. And I'm going to tell you right now, those holding calls, I even paused stuff, went back and forth, looked at it. And those were the big plays that came from from Notre Dame, those holding calls. It sprung out their running back to get the first downs that time. You know, the holding calls, should have been pass interference. They didn't call. I mean, obvious stuff that they was missing, man. And I was so upset about it because it was like right in your face type of calls, and they wasn't calling them. But getting back to the program is right at its peak. It's going to be beautiful to see these guys. And the stadium was packed to the max despite
That's
of
the
the
busiest
nasty
I've
weather.
seen the stadium. That's
Right.
as full as I've seen that stadium. They had more fans there than the Miami Dolphins generally carry
Of course.
throughout the year. So
Yep.
just as a heads
In a
up.
nasty rainy night, that's the thing that you can clearly see that the fans are engaged. They are here. They're going to support the team. So I'm loving it, man. I am absolutely loving this program.
Absolutely. So when you met with Coach Cristobal, what kind of what kind of energy did you pick up from him? Because it seems as though he's brought some energy to that team that I haven't seen in a long time. And I know you met with him and you chatted with him. Tell us a little bit about what you picked up from the energy and the vibe from Coach Cristobal.
He's excited because he know this is it. You know, when you know coaches, when you play for people and you've been on championships teams, you can feel it when you got them all. And he feel that. He know he's got a great team. And all he has to do, and of course, these guys are doing exactly what he's doing because they're emulating the head coach. When they're game tackling now, they're sustaining their blocks. They're going down the field, blocking downfield. I mean, when you got teams that's doing that, they headed for championships, man. I mean, Cristobal was not a brand new guy. You know, he's been around. He's been around the Sabins. He's been around all of these elite coaches, and he's learned from them. And that's why he's so good at it, man. And what I love about him is his patience. He knew he was going to get right where he is right now, but he had to iron out all the kinks and get everybody in place, and now he has it. I mean, he was very excited when I was speaking to him last week about how good this team is and how motivated they are in the character of this team. And it's going to be good to watch them throughout the season because they got a lot of things in place that they didn't have in place 2 or 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago. He's got everything in place. He's got all the backing from the alumni and the community. And it's great to see the student body out there supporting the team. And that had drifted off a little bit. But, man, it's there now. It's there.
Exactly. And what I saw on the sideline yesterday, from the time that I watched the game, we're really into the third quarter and the fourth quarter, is the composure. And that's something I haven't seen in a while from the University of Miami, is the composure. They were up 14 points. And then there was a few series where granted, give or take, whether it was the officiating or whether, one of the defensive backs blew a coverage and Notre Dame's receiver was able to get behind him and they made a big play. Notre Dame went down, punched it in, and, before you knew it, it was a tied game. But under most conditions and circumstances over the last 20 years with Miami, they would have folded. They wouldn't have had an answer for Notre Dame's next move, which they had last night. And that's what great teams are made of. They're built to have an answer for the opponent when the opponent scores or when the opponent stops them on a drive or whatever. And I have nothing but accolades for Mario Cristobal because he has put the right coaches around these young people to get them where they need to be. And what I mean by that, let's just say, for example, the Shannon Dawson hire. Shannon Dawson is one of the best offensive coordinators, if not the best offensive coordinator in college football. Let me repeat that. Shannon Dawson is the best offensive coordinator amongst a bunch of good offensive coordinators within college football, and that was a game-changing hire. And his staff is just made up of ex-players or coaches that's been around and coaches that's been entrenched in college football, and they understand when they come in, when they're hired, this is a tradition. This is a culture. I mean, the University of Miami is a culture, and that's what it's about. It's a cultural program where these coaches understand where this program needs to be, where this program has to be to compete for national championships over the next 5 or 6 years. And I see that coming. I'm not going to prematurely say that they might be in a championship this year, but I know they will be in that playoff rotation and they will run the table because right now I don't see very many teams that's going to put up a fight against them other than Florida State. I got that one circled. I'm looking at Florida State and I'm looking at Florida and I'm looking at no one else. I don't see any other teams that can compete. And this looks like the year Miami's going to be in the ACC championship game to me. From the way they looked last night and where they are going in the upcoming weeks on into next month, I believe that they are going to be in the ACC championship playing against someone. I don't know which team that may be, but that Florida State game is going to be it's going to be a big one because Florida State won really big this weekend over Alabama, and we'll talk about that game a little bit later on. Carson Beck has he has an IQ, man. He has a top IQ. He looked so poised out there yesterday to have been a transfer to come from Georgia, and you could tell him and Shannon Dawson they just hit it off, man. They just hit it off. I mean, Carson Beck and Shannon Dawson. Carson Beck has a clear and full understanding of Shannon Dawson's offense. He has a full understanding of it. He knows what needs to be done. He knows how to deliver the ball off. And man, those receivers from Miami, they stepped up. And one of the reasons I appreciate the new receiving core, and it's not altogether new because some of those youngsters have been there for a while, but man, they made some spectacular catches yesterday. And they hurt Notre Dame on the same type of play on several touchdowns that was scored yesterday. They didn't change the play up much. They may have given a different look for that play, but they did not change it up too much. And if you look here, Miami's top receiver was
J.C. Daniels.
Yes,
J.C.
he
Daniels.
made a one-hand catch. He made a one-hand catch yesterday that was phenomenal. It made Odell Beckham. It reminded me of that Odell Beckham's initial catch that made him Odell Beckham.
Like a gymnast.
Yes.
Like a gymnast.
Yes. Stick your hand up, grab it, bring it into your body, hit the ground, but the ball is tucked into your body. It doesn't move. It's just spectacular. And after even they reviewed it, they couldn't deny him that particular play, because that was just a dynamic catch in itself, and I'm just proud of these young people, these guys from Miami, and that defense, man, they stepped up immensely, especially with that interception, and that play where they intercepted that ball and Bain took that ball and ran up the sideline with it. That was a spectacular defensive play, in my opinion. Wouldn't you say so?
Yeah. Of course, I was so screaming at the TV for Bain Jr. to like cut it in, man. He tried to hit the sideline. If he would have just turned it in, that guy would have been running for a touchdown. But he stayed down the sideline and got pushed out. If he would have just maneuvered inside, it would have been 6. Man.
I think you're
But
right.
it was just the way that play like materialized, and it hit the other guy's foot, and he caught it and took off down the sideline with it. It was plays like that. It's the heads up type of play that you have to have that pushes out big plays like that. You got to be heads up. You got to be alert. You got to be ready for moments like that. And he was ready for that moment, man. You got to smell that football. It's coming there somewhere. And
That's
he
right.
grabbed it and took off down the sideline, man. And I was cracking up because, when guys like that, they're not used to getting their hands on the ball, they freaking don't really know what to do with it, but take off down the sideline, man. And it was funny to see it. But yeah, man, I'm loving their team of play, man. And you can see how the team has gelled dramatically, man. And it's really fun to watch them. Like it remind you of those days of the 80s and the 90s, man, the way they're in the early 2000s or how they're playing now. They playing with so much energy. And you could tell these guys are working hard at it because it's paying off right now. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. So here it looks like Carson Beck completed 20 of 31 passes for 205 yards, which were impressive yards, in my opinion. And the running backs, Mark Fletcher rushed for 64 yards. And his backfield mate, Marty Brown, he rushed for 54 yards. And that's quite impressive on a defense like Notre Dame's. Notre Dame has traditionally had a pretty good defense, especially, since Al Golden was there. And Al Golden actually departed. And, even with their new defensive coordinator, their defense didn't seem to change much. They were aggressive. They were pressing the line. They were bringing all of the dynamics they brought last year when they were in that college football playoff, and they ended up losing against Ohio State to go to the national championship game. Notre Dame's defense was a formidable defense for this offense to be able to generate this many yards. So it looks like Malachi Toney was the receiver that I was talking about. He reminds me, from the way he looked, of the cheetah, number 10. I mean, I that gave me some comparisons, although he doesn't have the cheetah speed, of course, but his catching skills was just amazing yesterday. He had 6 receptions for 82 yards and a touchdown. And it looks like C.J. Daniels had 5 catches for 46 yards, including that circus catch down on the goal line. And Reuben Bain Jr., that's the is he related to Talbert Bain? Is that Talbert Bain?
I don't want to go far as say it, but I think he is. I'm not quite sure about it. But I mean, his play is like Talbot Bain. Yeah. But I was going to mention Malachi Toney, man. Malachi Toney is one of the guys who they continue to hold the number 0 for Notre Dame was holding him all night, man, and they wasn't calling it. He grabbed him around the waist a couple times, he grabbed the shoulder pads a couple times, and he held him where he couldn't catch the ball, and they wasn't calling it, man. And I didn't understand why the staff wasn't outraged about it, because I was sick because it was so obvious. These defects was so obvious where they didn't call it. Referees was right on the play, never called it. And it was like, wow, when are you going to make a call? And then, of course, they made calls at the end but by that time we had to pretty much secure the game. But I just was really upset with the officiating. Yeah.
Right. So it looks like Reuben Bain Jr. is Talbert Bain's cousin. So he is related in the bloodline for Talbot Bain. Talbot Bain was one of the top defensive backs at the University of Miami when he played. So I just wanted to verify that. And Reuben Bain, one of the best defensive linemen in college football at this point. And for him to be able to catch that interception and run with it the way I saw him running with it, I'm very impressed. So let me just go over some of the officiating. Okay, so I did see a couple of plays where the receiver, obviously, the defensive back had his arm wrapped around the receiver's back, which is a pass interference. There's no middle ground on that. There's no, gray area on that. If he's wrapped around him, that is a pass interference play. That is a pass interference call because he is interfering with the receiver's ability to be able to move, and you can't obstruct that in college football. There is no excuse why that play shouldn't have been called a pass interference. Now, as far as the holding goes on the line, I'll say this once again. All of those schools from the Midwest, which I consider Notre Dame coming out of Indiana is from the Midwest, they have a technique where they teach their linemen to engage, grab the outside of your shoulder pads near the top, grab, hold jersey, try to control the individual either left or right or forward or backwards or whatever the case may be. And they're taught to do that quickly. You do that, you engage, you get your hands under his shoulder pads like this, and you engage and you hold and then you let go at the last minute. If that makes sense. Does that make sense to you? If you're looking at it from an officiating standpoint of view?
There's no way you can look at it.
Wisconsin does it. Iowa does it.
They should be called for it every time.
I mean, constant coming out of the Big Ten.
It's holding. It's holding. If you
It
grab a guy at all, your hand's supposed to be balled up. You're not supposed to grab a guy's jersey and try to push him either way you can. A defense can grab a guy and shove him somewhere, but an offensive guy cannot do that. In essence, let me show you how you know they're holding. When we play, you grab a guy with your shoulder pads and you push him with your shoulders to a direction that you want to go. You don't stand up with a guy and push him back and forth. That's for defenses to do. But for an offense to grab you and try to push you one way or the other, you're holding.
True.
Period.
True.
You're holding, man. And all it takes is a split second when you got a freaking lightning fast running back that's going to burn off of your rear end. He's going to cut either way off of your rear end, and he's gone. And that's what was happening last night. And this was holding. It was holding, and they didn't call it. And I just felt like, how can you continue to let these guys get away with this holding? I mean, what is it? Win at all costs? Because that's what he was doing. I wanted the University of Miami to blow them out because they were cheating, because that's what it was, and they wasn't calling these plays.
Well, I'm not going to even go as far as to say cheating. I'm just going to go to say that they broke several. They broke several rules when it comes to holding that they held, because that's a technique that they're taught. And that's a technique that in the midst of the action, once the play actually starts to unfold, the official has to have quick eyes to be able to see some of these holes. Now, some of the holes are obvious. There's no, there's no middle ground on that as well. It's just, if you hold, you hold. And if you grab, you grab. And if you, tackle someone to keep them from rushing in, that's a hole, in my opinion. But on the flip side of that, Miami overcame those obstacles, and I'm going to call those obstacles because that's what they were. I mean, anytime you have a team that was given the benefit like Notre Dame was given yesterday, and they had an opportunity to try to parlay that into scores and points and and to try to win the game. That is something that Miami was able to meet that threshold and match their intensity and to overcome all of those things that happen. That's the way I'm looking at it.
DC, those infractions that they displayed last night, it enabled them to sustain drives, DC. It was times where they were being held. It was 3rd and 8, 3rd and 7, and they would run a play, and I would see them hold, and that running back burst right off of the tail of the number 70 who was holding. I mean, he was clearly holding. Craig, Ashton Craig was his name,
Mm-hmm.
who was holding. He was holding, along with Billy, number 74, Stroke. He was holding. It just was obvious stuff. They were clearly holding. It was whether it was taught or not. If it's taught, they're teaching them illegal stuff to do.
Well,
And
true. But
it's,
I mean,
it's,
it's a
it's,
technique that they teach in order, because if you look at the game with Wisconsin and Miami in the Orange Bowl, and this was way back when Mark Richt was there, Mark Richt lost his mind from all of those holes that night. Mark Richt was a very laid back guy. I never saw him lose it like that before. And the way Wisconsin was holding them that night, it was just unbelievable that the officials weren't making those calls. So I do have to agree with you that it's just one of those situations where if they can get away with it, they do it. And if they cannot get away with it, if the officiating is calling it like it should be called, that's what should have happened. And the game might have not even been as close as it was, right?
it wouldn't have been because these was drives that they was being held 3rd and 8, and it sprung off to them to get a first down. They made 12, 13, 14 yards off of those runs.
Exactly.
So the score could have very well been different if it wasn't for these calls that was just missed. I mean, I don't see how you can continue to miss blatant holes like that. I mean, especially when you got that tailback is bouncing it from the outside, and that tackle is the one doing the hole, and he's on the outside. So
Right.
he's doing the hole, and you can clearly see him grabbing under the shoulder pads of the defender.
Right.
So it's obvious stuff. It was obvious stuff, and I just had to really just maintain my composure to watch something like this, where your team that you're rooting for is getting held and is not being called, and you see a team drive down the field and score off of it. It's just not fair, man, to continue to do this. And I think they need to start, showing this stuff to the commissions so they can cut it out, because it can very well sway a game when you got teams that's working their rear end on defense to stop an offense, and then you got some holding going on, and it give them a first down, and they continue their drive till they score a field goal or a touchdown. It's just, to me, is not fair to the opposite team.
Exactly. But overall, Miami got the win, and we're happy about that. And we will definitely be monitoring the rest of their season, especially we're circling the date for that Florida State game for sure. So we will definitely be talking about Miami on into this year, as well as other college teams as well. I want to send a shout out to Mike. Mike just commented, yo, how's it going? We're doing fine, and we're glad you're here. So stay with us.
Thanks,
we're
Mike.
going to be covering some other stuff, Mike. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate you. All right. So let's go to the Texas versus Ohio State game. Let me back up a little bit. About 3 weeks ago, we had conversation about this particular game, and I predicted that Texas was going to go up there and lose. And I wasn't saying that because I don't like Texas. I don't have a disliking for Texas. I think Texas is a very good program. They are a traditional program. They have history. They have won national championships. They have brought some of the best athletes in football into that program and developed those players to go to the professional league, mainly being Earl Campbell as number one, Ricky Williams. I can go on and on. Vince Young. I could keep going if you want to keep going about Texas. So I don't have any vendetta against Texas. However, I did know that they were going to go up there and lose. And here's the reason why they were going to go up there and lose. Ohio State was the defending national champions, and they were playing at home in the Horseshoe. For one thing, Ohio State does not lose in the Horseshoe. I'll repeat it again, that the only teams tend to go up in the Horseshoe and beat Ohio State is Big Ten teams like Michigan. And other teams can come in there and win as well. But they're not going to go the beginning of the year at home in the Horseshoe, and they're going to let Texas come up there and beat them. It's just not going to happen. So, Isaiah, I want to get an understanding from you about Texas and that offense and Arch Manning being the quarterback. This was his first real start in front of a crowd like, it was probably up to 100,000 people. I don't have the exact number up under me, but think about this. Arch Manning only played sparingly over the last year or so. And he played in games that they tended to have been playing with leads against other teams. So he didn't have, I don't think he had the experience to be able to go into a hostile environment like Ohio State, to play against Ohio State team. By the way, Ohio State lost probably 3 or 4 defenders to the NFL draft. So they had to plug and play in those positions to get those, positions plugged up before this game, right? So I want to know from you, do you think it was a situation where the Arch Manning, he was just up against too much, or or just Ohio State just was ready to play whoever showed up with Texas?
Yeah. It was a bit of everything you just mentioned. Arch Manning he's okay. He's average right now. He's not a lighted up quarterback right now. He's inexperienced still. He had a really terrible connection with his receivers. He's just not ready yet. I mean, he's going to be good later on because he's got the pedigree of his uncles, and his grandfather. But he's not ready yet, man. I mean, he's a starter, of course, but he's not ready to win anything big. I mean, he don't have full control and the command and the respect from his players yet. They don't trust each other yet. I mean, I watch their route running. I watch how he throw the ball to them. They don't go defend him when he's in trouble. You can see they're not connected, like a good, well-oiled team is. And they got beat. And Steve Sarkisian, he almost didn't even know what to call because these guys was rattled. They were rattled, man. And when they got back on the sideline, he couldn't get these guys poised and adjusted and calm enough to go back in there and get some sustained drives. And that plagued those guys throughout that game. And what he's going to need to do is get several games under his belt where he can get comfortable with his receivers because they're not. They're not, and they're going to probably lose a couple more games because I see them not connecting right now. They're not. They're not connecting. We just mentioned something about Beck, Carson Beck in the University of Miami. You're talking about Beck that came to a whole different system in the University of Miami, and their receiving core has gelled with him.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Over at Arch Manning and his receiving core, they're not gelling, man. I mean, they don't know how to come back when he's in trouble. They don't know how to defend him when he's in trouble. He throws the ball all over the place, and they miss passes and everything. So they got a lot of work to do. And we're going to see how this thing panned out. I could see them losing several games. They were playing defending national championships, of course, but they wasn't ready for that game. That game was really over their head, man. It was.
I think you're right. And to coattail on what you said about Sarkisian, I think he was just determined to run on Ohio State, which was a bad idea because it looks like it was a defensive struggle at the beginning of the game. The first half was a defensive battle, back and forth. I mean, two top defenses in college football were battling it out. And Texas, to me, they have one of the best defenses, if not the best defenses in college football. They have everything they need, that defensive line. But I've always said all along, if you win in the trenches, it gives you a lot better chance to win a football game on both sides of the ball. That's on the offensive side and the defensive side. I thought Steve Sarkisian made, I'm not going to call them errors, but I just thought that he didn't kind of go through his normal routine of play calling from what I've seen him do in the past, with a lot of movement, a lot of misdirection movement that keeps the defense having to think and keeps the defense on their toes. If you have alignments and you have players and alignments moving and you got motion and things of that. So I didn't see a lot of that in the first half. I saw running. I mean, he just tried, and they didn't do too bad running the ball either. But Ohio State wasn't going to let them beat them with a running game. They just wasn't going to do it.
Yeah, they got to diversify that offense.
He should have diversified that offense to help Arch Manning in the first half with a bunch of short passes, a bunch of screens, because Steve Sarkisian is really strong with screens and all of the different looks that he can give you with a screen. I didn't see him run a lot of screens. I didn't see a lot of misdirection. I didn't see a lot of cross over routes where the receivers can actually run a 20 and out or 20 and in and give Arch Manning some throws that will give him the confidence to, build up as the game goes, because that's what you have to do as an offensive coordinator. So I'm not going to blame Arch Manning for his performance or this loss in the sense that I don't think Steve Sarkisian had the right type of plays to help Arch Manning advance this offense until the second half. They came out in the second half. He started doing what Steve Sarkisian do. Misdirection, crossover plays, giving Arch Manning passes that he can make throws with. Those type of things he should have started out with in the first half, and they should have mixed it up, and that would have probably kept Ohio State thinking, constantly thinking, because if a defense knows you're going to run, they're going to plug all the gaps. That's just the way it is. And if you got a good enough defense to plug those gaps, you're not going to run on them, period. That's just what I have from the whole thing. So Arch Manning has a bright future in front of him. He's a big quarterback. He's strong. He can run. And I'll give you a perfect example. Down on the goal line, they tried to quarterback sneak him in with Ohio State, with everybody on the line as low as they can get. Because, on the goal line, you have to get as low as you can get to try to cause penetration, right? And Arch Manning did not have a chance with that quarterback sneak. It just wasn't a good play call. What I thought would have been a good play call if he would have bootlegged him out, you know what I mean, and brought two receivers out. You could have crossed that wide receiver coming all the way across. You could have bootlegged the running back out and had a tight end right there. And it's very difficult to defend something like that down on the goal line. But no, he wanted to run a quarterback sneak, which that was the game changer right there for me. That was
a stalemate in there.
That was exactly, and that was a game changing moment where the momentum went to Ohio State. Their defense say, look, man, we're not worried about these guys. We'll let them drive down the field. They want to run. They get their little yards here and there. But when they get to that goal line, we're gonna stand strong and we're going to put up a fight. We're not going to let them get in the end zone. And to me, that was I thought Steve Sarkisian should have had a better play design for that rather than try to sneak Arch Manning in there when you had so much penetration coming from the Ohio State side. Listen, Ryan Day is a damn good coach for Ohio State. He's not going to let anybody other team come up there and beat him at home. It's just not going to happen. Yeah. Not to open the season. Ohio State's got a lot of work to do also, because at the end of the day, Ohio State, from what some of the things that I saw yesterday, if they play a better team in terms of the play calling and the athletes on the other side of the ball, they're going to be in trouble unless they make these corrections and make these adjustments as they go along for their next game. So we will move on to this next game, and I want to talk a little bit about Colorado and Coach Prime. Let me just say this. I'm very disappointed in Colorado. And I'm very disappointed in Colorado because they had all spring and summer to prepare for Georgia Tech. They knew what Haynes King was going to do. I told you weeks in advance that Haynes King is one of the best option running quarterbacks in college football. And year in and year out, Coach Prime has improved that team. I'm going to give him credit. I'm going to say year in and year out, since the time that he took that team over, he has improved that team to the level where they are now. But I don't think they're where they need to be on either side of the ball now that Shador and Hunter and all of them are gone. What do you think about that?
Well, it proves that he don't have his workhorses in those Gucci and the Louis Vuitton bags he brought there. You know, you don't have those bags no more, man. He's got some guys who's filling in. And I'm pissed because they hadn't bought in yet. Man, it ain't nowhere in the world Georgia Tech's supposed to come in there and beat those guys.
They was not supposed to come in there and win that game, especially with those three turnovers. Georgia Tech had two fumbles and an interception, and they came away with nothing.
And
nothing.
You see, when you lose the ball 3 times, you don't really have no business losing a game.
No.
Because that gave you 3 extra opportunities to score. And they came up empty on those things, man. And I just feel bad, man. I start thinking of his health and some of those times where, you know, the coach was out. You know, he was out sick, and then, you know, he had this scare with his health and all that type of stuff. It could have bled into the time that he spent, you know, was out during the summer months. But that don't have anything to do with that defense allowing these guys to go up and down the field, man. They just couldn't stop the run. And I just don't understand it, man. When you freaking work on a project for the entire summer and then let somebody come in there freshly on the first game and just embarrass you like that, it was embarrassing to watch that game.
I thought it was quite embarrassing to be able to come up in there and for Georgia Tech to gain all those yards on the ground, to me was... Yep. I still can't get over it. Georgia Tech ran wild with 320 yards rushing.
Yep.
And they outgained Colorado 463 yards to 305. Now, Colorado's running game has improved. I mean, they were able to run the ball a lot better than I've seen them run the ball in the past few years. They got good because, you know, Marshall Faulk, he's on that staff now. So those running backs and then their offensive line has drastically improved. Let's talk a little bit about Kaidon Salter. Kaidon Salter played for Liberty. He came in, to me, he's a blue chipper type of quarterback. He can throw, he has legs, he can run. My question is, there were some times where I thought he should have ran the football. I mean, if you don't have your first 3 options to get rid of that ball, you need to be running. You need to be running, especially when Georgia Tech's defenders have retreated to positions that they retreated to. You need to be running that ball and showing the dynamic that you have with your legs, just like Haynes King did. Right? Am I right?
Yeah, DC, that comes with instinct, man.
I thought he was timid. I thought he was timid in some cases because I don't know what was on his mind, and I'm not out there on that field, so I can't. I'm not going to question that part of it. But I thought he should have taken off and ran with that ball to keep Georgia Tech's defense honest. Because if you running with that football like that, they defense has got to come up and account for that, and that opens up other things, right?
Yeah, but that comes with instinct. I just mentioned that. When you see your options has gone, it failed, it broke down, or whatever the case may be, your guys are covered. You take off running, especially when you are skillful enough to do it. And it comes with instinct. And poised to understand, well, these guys are covered. Let me go. I can't wait here because eventually this line gonna break down on me. You got to find a way to, maneuver your way through that line of scrimmage and take off running. And see, he didn't do that. He's going to be caught in a trick bag throughout the season if he is just totally relying to chunk that ball down the field and waiting on these plays to develop where he can throw the ball down the field. It's not going to happen like that, man. You got to learn how to take off running. And those, even if you get 2 or 3 yards, that's all it takes. But you can't sit back there and take a loss. You can't get, sacked in the back because you didn't take off running. And you got to keep that chain moving. And to hold that ball, trying to wait for your guys to come open, is not good instinct. And that's what he's got to develop. Yeah,
it's not. I thought he made several good throws. And, Pat Shurmur is a good offensive coordinator. He's been in the NFL for over 30 years, and now he's the offensive coordinator for Colorado. He did a fantastic job with Shedeur in that offense last year. But this year's offense is drastically different. It's drastically different because you don't have the same personnel in there. So you have to basically build plays that cater to these players' talents and their strong points instead of, continue with the continuation of. I thought some of the play calling was questionable as well. I'm just going to be honest with you. I like Pat Shurmur. I think he's a good offensive coordinator. I know Coach Prime has all of the confidence in the world that Pat Shurmur can do the job. And Pat Shurmur, I don't think has any issues having to worry about his job. But I just think some of the play calling are not having quarterback design runs, RPOs, run pass option. If you don't have those RPOs designed for Kaidon Salter, it's just not going to work because you're expecting him to be in the shotgun and pick and choose the wide receivers instead of just saying, I got an RPO and rolling him out. Kind of what I said about Sarkisian with Arch Manning. When you have a pass rush that's coming in, you have to roll a quarterback. You have to move him. You can't have him standing in the pocket like that. And I just thought from my observation of watching this game that I didn't see some of the things that I thought that could help Salter. Now, one thing is for sure, Kaidon Salter will have several more opportunities to show that he deserves to be the starter. Julian Lewis is going to be playing if he doesn't prove that. I'm telling you. Julian Lewis is that 5-star blue chipper who Kaidon Salter beat out in the summer camp to become the starter. He's waiting in the wings, and I'm telling you, Julian Lewis has a dynamic as well to run and pass. So Coach Prime does have an ace in the hole to fall back on, although I'm not putting Kaidon Salter down because I think he will come around. Coach Prime at his press conference says, look, we're going to be much better next week. I don't want to hear you're going to be much better against Delaware State. Let's just say we'll be better in the next game after Delaware State against a Division I opponent that's formidable. Does that make sense to you?
Of course it does. But you know what? Even though you think that's a lower tier of a team, but when you're not on your A game, a lower tier of a team can still beat you. And I think that they're not comfortable with each other. I don't think the offensive coordinator 100% trust him, and he don't trust the plays because you talking about a guy who just do not make a decision to tuck the ball and run when his guys are not open. You got to be able to make that quick decision to take off running when your guys don't come or they're spring open. You got to go. And if that's not the case, it's something where that relationship with that offensive coordinator and that quarterback, they got to find some kind of common ground to say, okay, you let me handle this. You give me that play and you got to trust I'm going to get this job done. Otherwise, they're going to have to make a change in their quarterback position.
I would never rule it out, and I'll correct. It's Delaware. University of Delaware is going to be playing Colorado next. and it looks as though Colorado will be at home against Delaware. So, I mean, to me, like you say, there's any given Saturday that a team could come in and they could shock the world. I remember Appalachian State did Michigan like that back in the day.
Yep.
They went up to the big house and they beat Michigan in the big house. I don't foresee Delaware State beating Colorado this coming weekend. However, it looks like the opponents that they're going to face next, like the University of Houston, and I'm looking at BYU. BYU is the biggest one I got circled, as much as Iowa State and TCU, because I don't know what TCU is going to do tonight. I believe they play. I want to say
North Carolina.
Yeah, I think they play North Carolina. So if North Carolina end up beating TCU, I'll get a pulse on what TCU looks like tonight.
Because see what Belichick is going to do over there anyway. This will be his first college game.
Yeah, it will be, and I think his team is going to be very competitive. I'm not going to put them and go ahead and crown him right now, because I've known a lot of professional coaches go to college and they stink it up. So I'm not saying Belichick is going to do that, but he will have a very competitive team. But they're in the ACC, and listen, that conference has Clemson, it has Florida State, it has Miami, it's got Boston College. It's got a lot of good programs. It's going to be challenging North Carolina for, the spot to play in the ACC championship. So we'll see. I'm gonna pay close attention tonight how his team looks and how they play tonight, because this is a good, TCU is really a good measuring stick for North Carolina tonight. TCU is no pushover program, and they haven't been the same for the last several years since they went to the national championship. But they haven't. We'll see how that pans out tonight. Now, one last thing about Colorado is these players need to learn that it's a tradition, and they need to create and live and keep that tradition going. Shador and Hunter and all of them, they actually built the foundation of that new Colorado tradition, because it's a legacy program, even back from the 80s when Eric Bieniemy and Chad Brown and all those guys and Darian Hagan was there. They have a program that's a very, very historical, traditional program. They have to take that up and don't let anybody come into Folsom Field and beat you. No team should come into Folsom Field and beat you, period. If you lose on the road, but you don't lose at home. You protect your house. It's like Georgia Tech came in and kicked in their door, and they didn't do anything about it. Kicked in their door, and then they just sat there, and they didn't do anything. And getting to that defensive line, they held up pretty well until into the second half, and then they started getting manhandled by Tech's linemen. I mean, they were pushing them around like they were on sleds. And it's a zone run scheme, so you know what? Haynes King just run off where the lineman pushes the other grown man, whichever direction Haynes King cut back off of that, or the Georgia Tech running backs cut off of that. So they got a lot of work to do. They need to start controlling that line of scrimmage on both sides, mainly the defensive side, because that seemed to be the place where they were showed up the most, especially in the second half, especially with that last run that Haynes King made for that touchdown. It took the air out of me. I mean, I literally, because, Coach Prime is very special, and he means a lot to me. I like Coach Prime. And to know that he has a team out there and they aren't really exerting all of their talent in places that they need to exert it hurts my heart. Let's just say that. So let's move on to our last but not least, Florida State and Alabama. I'm going to start this off, and I'm going to say Kalen DeBoer is in a heap of trouble. You remember they used to say that back in the day when you lived out in the countryside? You know what? You in a heap of trouble. You're in a heap of trouble because that program does not look anywhere near what it looked like when Nick Saban was there. And I knew this was probably going to happen. It was just, to me, the program doesn't seem like they have that wherewithal to go somewhere and just take what they want from the opposing team. And I'm not taking any talent away from, Florida State, because Florida State has always been a good program. They had a down year last year, but Alabama is in a heap of trouble because they're going to struggle throughout the whole year in that SEC. LSU looked good against Clemson. LSU was able to win that game in Death Valley at Clemson. So Alabama is going to have to compete against Texas. They're going to have to compete against Texas A&M, more than likely, and LSU. Those are teams that they're going to have to fight with to regain some type of respectability because they've lost it. Tell me, where do you see the program falling off? Where do you see it go off the cliff? I mean, tell me about that.
It went off the cliff when Nick Saban walked out of the door. I mean, you're talking about being right here. You know how difficult it is to measure the standards of Nick Saban and just his bare emotions of mistakes, bad play, all of these things. Nick Saban will not allow a person on his team to make mistakes and not be held accountable. I seen them make mistakes time and time and time again the other night, and they was never held accountable. The boy was just sitting there with a boring look on his face. The head coach was just looking like in total disbelief. And Nick Saban would have, no, you come on that sideline when you made a mistake, man, he'd be in your rear end. Your parents would be crying for you if you've done something wrong. And that connection with these players are not there. They don't have that killer instinct. They didn't have that type of game tackling in what they would do. They don't have that downfield blocking. They don't have that chemistry like they had when Nick Saban was there. And you can clearly see that is lost. They just that sense of pride of being a freaking roll tide animal wasn't there. I mean, they didn't have it where they say, oh, shoot, we just didn't get a first down. When we get back in there, we're going to maul these guys. We're going down the field. We're going to smash them out, and we're going to plunge this thing in the end zone. That type of play is not there anymore, man. And I could see this coach just dingling like this here. The boy is dingling. That head coach is dingling.
He's hanging
like
on the
this.
string right now.
Yes, he is.
I think he's hanging on the
if
string.
If you lose something like that again, they will short order him out of there.
Kalen DeBoer is a damn good football coach. He proved that when he was at Washington. I mean, he took Washington to the national championship. They lost against Michigan. But he's in a program now where the expectations dwarf University of Washington's expectations. Right. They had on him when he was up at Washington. Listen, he'll get run out of town if they keep this type of thing up. It looks like Florida State scored in every quarter. And they did what they wanted to do with them. And to me, it's outright embarrassing that Alabama took a drubbing like that at Florida State. Listen, if you come up short and you play hard and your players play hard and they get to that point where they come up and lose by a field goal, that's understandable by the Alabama faithful. You went up there, you fought it out, and you came up short. But this doesn't look like they came up short. This looks like Florida State controlled the momentum from start to finish. They scored 7 in the first quarter, 10 in the second quarter, 7 in the third quarter, and 7 in the fourth quarter. Where is the defense? Where is Alabama's defense? Where is that vaunted defense that Nick Saban used to have? Where are they in the NFL?
They don't have it. No, well, he's supposed to recharge and replug. He's supposed to plug them right in as you go. Just because you lost a good player, you're supposed to push another guy overhead. You train the next man to step up, and that's not the case. You got a red shirt, Ty Ty Simpson is a quarterback. He was a redshirt and he's a junior. So he's supposed to have been learning from the quarterback before him
Right.
and plug him in and keep going down the field. But that's not the case anymore. It's a dramatic drop off with the quarterback situation. You sitting there as a red shirt junior, you're supposed to be ready to go. I mean, you've been there already 3 years, and you plug into the starting spot, and you just don't pull off the job. And then I don't see these guys winning. I think they're going to lose about 3 games, DC, at
I
least.
believe for sure. For sure. I definitely think they're going to drop 3. Because if you look at their schedule and look at some of the teams that they're going to be playing, like I said, the Texases and the LSUs and all of those teams, they're going to have to step up. They don't have any room to, they don't have a lot of time, let's just say, to get their act together, because I mean, 1 week after another, you're going to be playing one top team after another top team after another top team, It looks as though here Florida State's transfer quarterback, Tommy Castellanos, he was playing at Boston College, hell of a runner. He had 78 yards on the ground. He scored a touchdown. Mikey Danzy, which is a running back for Florida State, at least it shows here, he had 56 yards on the ground, and he scored a touchdown. And Gavin Sawchuk had 28 yards on the ground, and he scored a touchdown. To me, that defense allowed too much, right?
Yeah. Castellano, it was impressive. Thomas Castellano is very impressive to me, man. He did everything right. DC, he
did it when he was at Boston
right.
College. He did that at Boston College. I saw him play at Boston College. Let me say this. Mike Norvell, he got a game changer. I mean, when he brought Castellanos down to Florida State, this saved Mike Norvell's career. I think, especially at Florida State. Don't you agree?
Yeah.
Mike Norvell, if this kid can stay healthy throughout the year, Mike Norvell should be safe. He should be fine, because at the end of the day, Thomas Castellanos is one of the best running quarterbacks, run option, RPO type of quarterback that you can have in an offense that Florida State has. I mean, I'm just equally as impressed as well. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, because he just made all the right decisions, DC. I couldn't believe the poise and the speed and he did everything right. He got in trouble, he took off running. His guys wasn't open, he took off running.
Thank you.
And he made touchdowns because of it. So he's going to have these defenses off balance because he can run. So, man, I give a shout out to FSU because they had a crappy season last year. And from what I can see, the way they manhandled Alabama, they're going to have a successful season. If they play like this, like they played Saturday night, if they play like this with this type of intensity the entire year, they're going to have a very successful season.
That's right.
Yep.
So September 27th that's the date to circle, because that's against Georgia. They got to go to Georgia to play Georgia. And they have to play Tennessee. They got to play Tennessee. I think South Carolina is going to be a challenge for them as well. They play South Carolina October 18th. And they play LSU on November 8th. And they play Oklahoma on November 15th. And I'm like you. I see 3. You could circle 3 on this schedule that they're gonna be down, because they already down 1 game now. Yeah. So that Georgia, well, they play Wisconsin at home, so I don't think Wisconsin is gonna come in there and lay down on them. I really don't. Now Louisiana Monroe is their next game. They'll take out all of their aggression on Louisiana Monroe. I think that it's like you just beat up someone smaller than you. I see them doing that. Yeah. But when Wisconsin come to town, and then when they have to go to Georgia, and then when I'll put Missouri on the map and say Missouri is going to give them a hard way to go. And they play Missouri at Missouri. That's a tough team to beat at home. Tennessee is going to be on the road, but Tennessee has got a top-notch program. So we'll see. But if Kalen DeBoer wants to survive this, he's going to have to motivate his players, and they're going to have to just buckle down and start making plays like they used to, which I don't think they will do. Now, let me ask you this. Do you think these players are still some of Saban's players, or these are players he recruited and got through the portal?
It's a mixture, DC. Saban hadn't been gone that long. It's a mixture of his players, too. But when you don't have that authority over your players, they tend to start getting sorry just like the rest of them. So
That's
it's
right.
like you a product of who you hanging out with. It that coach is not. Just look at how many teams that went to the Super Bowl changed coaches, and they just remember the Cowboys.
Yeah, I
Remember
do.
Tampa Bay
I
when they
do.
changed coaches, and 2 years later they were just as sorry as can be. And this is what's going to happen to them if that coach, the board, do not get these guys in line. If he don't make these players play up to their standard, he's going to start losing dramatic recruits. These guys going to hit the portal on him, and they're going to leave him, and he's going to be in a whole bad dilemma over there because these kids are just move around and jump ship on you now.
Oh,
If
they'll
they
jump
see that
ship in a
program is
heartbeat
not
now,
going
especially
right,
if the
they out
program
of
is
it.
not winning and they're not getting the type of NIL money that they want or they expect. It's going to
Yep.
be interesting to see how well he could recruit even in the future, because if you start losing, nobody wants to come and play for a losing program,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And
So yeah, they'll be asking for Nick Saban to come back. They'll probably throw another $5 million at him, and he'll be making $15 million instead of 10.
that's right.
Because I can see this thing going south, man, with the way this team played and how he, the effect that he had on his players. I don't see it being a team that he's going to recover from. DC, I watched his emotions where he just wasn't into this thing where he made these guys be held accountable for mistakes. It's just I just look at a coach when your players screw up, you get on them right away. You don't let those guys off the hook. You don't just let them run past you to the sideline when they just made a big boo boo on the field, and just let them go sit down and just, we'll get them next time, or we'll get them next game, or we'll do this next. No, you hold them accountable right away, and he didn't do that. So
Well,
I think he's losing the locker room.
now, speaking on behalf of Ty Simpson, it looks as though his numbers to me doesn't look really bad. He was 23. He was 23 out of 43 for 254 yards and 2 TDs. I don't know what quarters he scored those through for those TDs with. However, you really want to know really where they hurting at? The running game. I'm looking at their numbers for running, and they didn't even have a back over 100 yards. And that
And
was
that's why
Alabama's
you're getting
signature.
them
That's a
Alabama.
Saban signature, is having a big old bruising back or a
Next
1-2
mountain
punch
running back.
bruising back. You got one
Yes.
back, and then you send the other one in, and you just pound that
hmm
other team, and you keep running at
You
their
always
defense.
kept fresh
And
running backs.
th-
You always kept fresh running backs, DC.
Kalen DeBoer needs to get his running game fixed and patched up, because if they don't patch up that running game, and that other team, all they have to do is worried about they could put three, they could rush three, and just play without having to have a line with every lineman in the gap. That they gotta bring everybody into the box. They gonna key on Ty Simpson. That's what they're gonna do, and they're gonna key on those receivers. And if the receivers, like you say they were, and they dropping passes already, just imagine what it may look like if you get a team like, say for example, Texas. If you were to match Texas up against Alabama right now, it would be a debacle. It would be a bloodbath, I think. Just with Texas's defense, right? So
Yep.
yeah, that pretty much wraps up everything. And I want to go ahead and send a word of and a shout out to Lee Corso on Saturday football. College Football Saturday, as they call it. Lee Corso had
Yeah.
been on there forever. I can remember him back when I was coming out of high school. Very well respected coach when he was at Indiana. He coached at Indiana. He was able to come on to that show, and he put on his mascot hats and helmets and different type of mascot headpieces, and he predicted games, and he called the right prediction with Ohio State and Texas, because he put on Brutus's head. So that was his last call. He no longer will be on Saturday football, college football Saturday. So we wish Lee Corso well. Enjoy yourself. Enjoy life. Stay active. We want you to stay active. Keep moving around to these games. Go to these games when you feel good enough to go to these games, because that'll keep everything going within your system, and you'll be able to enjoy life a lot longer, as I would say. We'll close this thing out, and I'm going to have Isaah close us out for today.
There it is.
All about the U.
Yeah, congratulations to the U, man. Good game last night. But I'm a 305 guy, but I love the state of Florida. Florida won, Florida State won, and man, that's what it's all about. But on the important note, you guys continue to check your health, continue to check your loved ones, tell them how much you love them. Just lost one of my classmates' father just passed away. Randy and Mark Lewis, their dad, passed away yesterday, and it's tearing us apart. He was a very, very shrewd businessman and father and loving husband. And I remember high school; they treated me like I was their child, and they lost their father, and I'm devastated about it. But you guys, tell your friends about this show. It's lovely. We're giving good content. We're doing this thing for entertainment purposes. We're loving it. And like I said before, love on your family members, love your friends as much as you can, because you may not have them there tomorrow. So you guys enjoy your week. Have a blessed weekend.
Absolutely. Well said. Isaah buttoned up everything about your health. Once again, take care of yourself, and then you can help others around you. But if you're not taking care of yourself, you cannot help others, because you won't even be in the physical condition or mental condition to do it. So take care, be strong. We'll come back at you soon on the DC Stewart Show Podcast. I'm your host, Derek Stewart, again with my kinfolk, Isaah. Take it easy. Peace, love, and prosperity. Take care.